Hey everybody, this is John and welcome back to the Sketch Magazine podcast. I am joined once again by the inimitable Bill Nichols and Bob Hickey, and our subject for tonight is self-publishing. Why? Why would someone want to self-publish?
They are
That's what we want to talk
insane.
about. So they're insane.
They're insane.
They're insane. So
Have too much time on their hands.
I guess because it is tough. It is not by any stretch of the imagination easy. So I guess the most important thing for us to do first is define self-publishing for someone someone who's going, what the heck are they talking about?
Right. Well, self-publisher, the way I see it, is somebody who creates, produces, and publishes as far as go to print or delivers the package to an audience, whether it's through a distributor or now we have online, which we need to discuss down the road. That would be a self-publisher. A lot of your popular self-publishers, Jeff Smith from Bone, Terry Moore from Paradise, Strangers in Paradise. Of course, the Turtle guys self-published their comics at the beginning. Now everybody publishes Turtle comics.
Yeah.
Those are some of the Dave Sims from Cerebus. These guys created the package. They took it to the printer. They had it printed. They offered it through the distributor, and they shipped it through the distributor and got it through the store. It's really hard right now to fight for that shelf space for a self-publisher or small press. I don't like the term small press. Self-publisher at the moment. It's really hard to get into catalog. It's hard for the store as a previous store owner. It's hard to fight for that shelf space because as a store owner, I got to make profit off that spot. So you've got to do a lot of work on your end for you can really be successful in a store. And Dave Sims, Terry Moore, Jeff Smith, they all didn't just wake up one day and had one of the most popular books out there in the market. They worked hard at it.
Yeah, it's really important to define that way because a lot of people tend to get things mixed up. Like a lot of people are seeing some of these smaller quote unquote studios and thinking, oh, that's self publishing. Well, it is in the broadest sense of the term, but that's actually a group where all the people you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
are really just more single entities or just a few people. I once heard someone call Boom a self publishing studio. It's like,
No.
well, kind of, but no.
No. They got editors and staffs and
Right, exactly.
you know. I've self-published myself, and I've had a studio where we've published my stuff
Others,
along
yeah.
with others. Yeah, like Bo Smith's Parts Unknown and Rick McCollum's Ashley Dust and Tom and Mary Barebaum's Dead Kid. Just the three I've done. So I've done both. I think myself, I'm heading back into or doing some self-publishing, and then self-publishing is you can produce a package, but you don't always have to quote unquote self-publish either. If it's a good enough package like Laura Inez's book, she took it to IDW,
Right, the Dreamer.
The Dreamer, and they published it for her. Now, honestly, you can't expect to make any money. You've landed this deal, you're published, you have graphic novels, yay! Problem is, by the time the distributors take their cuts, the publishers take their cut, you get some really nice looking graphic novels at the end of the day.
Hmm.
What I'm doing right now with Skystorm and with you guys is that I'm trying to figure out how to merchandise around that. I think that's what a lot of self-publishers have to look at. Is okay, I'm going to spend all this time, and Bill, you know how much time it takes to produce a comic.
hmm
You spend all this time, but how can you benefit financially from doing that? Because even though we all do this because we love it, same reason we do this podcast, we love sharing how to make comics. We have to figure out financially how you can take the amount of time it takes to make the comic, to writing, the drawing, the inking, the lettering, coloring, whatever, all the steps, and can you make enough money off actual the comic, or can you take the IP, the intellectual property, and merchandise around the comic, use the comic as a feeder to build a readership, a fan base, And those don't just come to you. We'll talk about how you have to build those, but then merchandise stuff around it. That's what we're sort of playing with ourselves right now, and we'll keep letting people know how successful or our failures in that. But so there's a lot more than just saying I'm going to publish a comic, unless that's all you want to do. Being Blue Line, I have seen so many people buy paper, art supplies. They make their comic. They have 1,000 printed, and they are tickled pink. They did it, but they're not. It's not going to be a. They did the one comic. They're not going to continue to do multiple comics because financially you have to get paid for that time invested. Too deep?
Yeah, no,
No.
no, not at all. I was just recalling once at a show, and I'm not going to name the person because I don't want to embarrass him, but he self-publishes, and he, I think, had sold 2 issues by the time I went up to talk to him. Uh, he said to me, "All I have to sell is one more, and I'm happy."
Really?
Yeah,
3 copies.
I've made my day. I've made my weekend. I don't remember exactly what it was, but he was overjoyed just to have sold 2 or 3. Now, on the flip side, we all know someone, and I will say his name, Eric Adams, who does
Mhm.
Lackluster World,
Right.
who completely does everything himself.
Right.
It's all him from beginning to end. And he's done a phenomenal job, not only at putting out just a really beautiful product, but merchandising himself, getting Lackluster World's name out there
Right.
without having in any way to compromise his original story. So I've been really impressed with the amount of work he does. Now he goes to, 1 million shows a year too. So
hmm Well, Eric's stuff's very stylized too. So
yes, yes,
when you're that stylized, you fall into a readership. You got to find an audience that likes that style.
right.
And of course, with comics, it's always the visual first, and then we decide whether we want to read the story or not. Eric's done a great job. Very, very smart self-publisher.
Right.
I agree. That's all I have to say about on that part.
Expand.
No, I mean Eric is. I like his stuff, and during the sketch card event, I remember one of his cards.
hmm
I mean, it got some buzz, and I just really proud of what he did. He got several different comments from people just on his. It was in the style that he does his work, his comics. So I mean, he is a really good example. I mean, like I said, we all know other examples. A couple weeks ago, I was talking to Scotty Ray Watson, and we mutually knew, and Scotty had worked for someone who had an opportunity to self-publish. Actually, his dad owned a printing business, and that was not a good experience. Or it may have been for some people, but this guy, to me, it was a wasted opportunity. Because he offered contests and different things. He was plunking his money into everything but production, it seemed like. But the benefit was that he had Scotty working for him. That was maybe a bad example, and for that guy, that may not have been a down thing. So, and I also remember Ed Decker. Once upon a time, his goal was to be published by 21, and he self-published. I think it was Black Bow or one of his books. He made that goal, and he had to self-publish to do it. But in the course of things, he worked with other people a little bit on. I think it was Butch Burkham, I think,
hmm
and some other things. But he also worked in a comic shop. But I mean, being an Apple 5, once upon a time, we knew people who self-published all the time,
Hmm.
and there were a lot of them. And for some people, that is, the ends to the means, to get their work out there. And maybe that's the only way that they can get it out there, because it may be too much of an individual view of things that, major publishers, yeah, they're going to take a pass on it because it is such a stylized thing or just something that's not their cup of tea. So,
Right. Well, we all know the three of us. We know Darren, Jackie, and Krista. They self-publish on the Ringtail Cafe,
Hmm.
and they've done very good in their was it Animorph
mm-hmm.
comics, and recently they did Confectionaries, which is an all ages comic, and we've sold a lot of those in the store, and that we actually had some people on the pull list for it on the store. So they're starting to fill their niche, and they're going with their strengths. They draw the animal stuff very well and write it very well, and now they're filling out how can we do this and get out of this little niche market and maybe do something like all ages and create a larger market for their product. So, and that's sort of what you've got to do. If you self-publish, though, you're the creator, and you get people to work with you. I mean, Bill and I have worked together on a lot of projects over the years. Then you're the publisher, and then you're the promoter, and then you got to do the shows, you got to do signings, you got to talk to stores, you got to talk to distributors, you got to talk to printers, you've got to get the book printed, you got to pay the bills, and get it shipped to the distributors and then the stores, and then do everything you can to help the stores sell the books to the people you talk to at the conventions. And that's pretty scary because everybody wants to sit at their art table and just draw. And the cool thing is, hopefully, real soon, that's going to happen to where you can cut out a lot of this, and self-publishing digitally will be the easiest way to do it. Basically, you still got to produce the whole book, but then you compact it into a digital file, offer it up on a digital distributor, and build your readership like online, as we're building the readership of this podcast by using social medias. You just really build those up. They don't take as much time, and you can build your readership up that way. We're going to be experimenting with that also with Skystorm. So yeah, there's other opportunities now than there was 10 years ago when we did this, when we did it 18 years ago when we first started. Yeah, folks, we're that old.
Older.
It's getting older. It's getting exciting. It is, with the digital opportunity. So self-publishing, we're going to see a lot of different genres and a lot of different art. And I just hope, well, for myself, I hope they continue to draw on paper, not digitally. They just,
I was about to say, I don't think paper will ever fully go away.
I think by the time I retire, it's going to be about gone. I've seen some of the new softwares, and we'll talk about them in future episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't think. I think it's going to become more draw on paper will be a hobby, just like a lot of painting is now.
Right.
Acrylics, watercolors, and stuff. Then, if you're actually producing, you will produce on a Wacom.
Oh, so. Well, yeah. I mean, creation-wise.
Yes.
Yeah, I can definitely see that happening.
Yeah.
Eventually. I just don't think reader-wise.
I think floppies are going to be gone. I think we're going to do traits.
Because even I'm kind of losing the floppy habit.
See, I'm old school.
And I was a big advocate for those, but...
Right. But yeah, I think as I've seen digital music come along with my 19-year-old, I'm seeing digital comics coming along with my 9-year-old. And I see him getting a lot more of his content online as far as Cartoon Network. He can watch any show he wants when he wants to. Right. He can download comics and read them. So that's all exciting, though. That opens this whole niche market up to tons of people. So I think self-publishing can go crazy, but you've got to also be able to build your readerships. You got to go to shows or go to wherever you can reach the market you're trying to reach.
Right.
Is it a comic show? Beginning next week, I'm launching a site called claysway.com. I've got 20 strips now from Jackie. And the site's based around ADHD Kid. It's based on my two boys. I'm thinking marketing-wise, I can do a lot more with schools, libraries, and just LD classes and stuff like that, meetings, and promote the resource part of the site there. So you got to keep your mind open of where you can reach your audience. Is your book about cars? Well, try a couple hot rod shows. See if you can get people to take a look at it. Yeah, they might say, I'm not into comics, but it doesn't hurt to try. With Race Danger we're launching next year, we might go do a couple NASCAR shows just to see how they do. Right. So you got to keep your mind open to where, you can reach an audience, a craft show, or You can keep it local and keep it affordable. You can spend a ton of money doing these shows, a ton of money.
Yeah, you have to be smart about what, especially starting out. You have to be really smart about how involved you want to be in the kind of glitzy, flashy part of your self promotion.
Right.
I have seen a couple of people who have books that literally look like they threw them together the day before, but they've got these massive setups
Hmm.
and posters and standees and animatronics and all sorts of other crap going on behind them,
Hey,
but the book looks bad.
I've stapled a few ash cans on ironing boards in hotel rooms the day before a show.
Yeah,
You
but
know?
the quality of the work is still there,
Right, right, right,
even if it's in an ash can.
right,
This looked like it was made from the ashes from the can, you know.
right.
So it's there's definitely you need to get your book straight first. I think we hit pretty heavily on the pitfalls of
Hmm.
self-publishing. Maybe to bring those people back who we just completely scared out of the genre. Uh, what are the benefits? What do we think the benefits of self-publishing are? I mean, we already mentioned one or two, like you can get to control your own story.
Right,
You don't have those extra editorial notes on your story.
right.
What are the other benefits?
Ownership is a big thing. You own it. A lot of times you can go to another publisher and they're going to get some type of rights to your project, whether it's film rights, merchandising rights. They own the trademark and you own the copyright. There's all kinds of stuff out there that you can fall into. You have to be careful. I once signed a contract for a property, tied it up for 5 years. We got 6 issues out. It was great. We didn't make a dime from it. Bill was involved in that, and I barely got the creative talent paid because the publisher sold the books at too low of a cost, and the print prices came in over budget. So we didn't make a dime off of it. So, and there you go. I'm scaring people away. The thing is, I signed a 5-year contract. I got the property back, though.
Right.
Full ownership. It's mine. I think the biggest benefit is that, here, for me anyway, when I publish a book, and I'm so looking forward to doing this again next year, is introducing it to a new reader, and then have them come back later that day or next day and says, I read it and I really enjoyed it, and then ask me questions about it, because that really showed me that they did read it. So the enjoyment that somebody took the time out and actually read it, and then one wants more. That's right. A great feeling. It really pushes you, gets you pumped up, gets you going. So that's a huge plus. Along with ownership, full rights of merchandise. I know I keep talking money because it's an important part that a lot of creators overlook.
Well, yeah, I mean,
we got to make a living.
Right. If you are planning to make comics your living, if you're planning not to have to work a day job,
right?
Money is something you're going to have to deal with unless you're just happen to be independently wealthy. And if you are, see me after the show.
Well, even then, even if you're doing them on the side, you still have to offset that time. You've got to recoup your investment.
Right, yeah.
Your time investment. And there's ways. But, Bill, what do you think some of the huge benefits? You're working on a property now with Gary Barker, right?
Yeah. I think part of it is that it is it's sort of a visual version of the Great American Novel for some people. It's the fulfillment of a dream for some people. Which may make it sound kind of lofty, but it is that. It's you own it. It is something of you, something of yours, and it's your personal vision, and it gets it out there. And yeah, there is a marketing aspect of it, and there's a creative aspect of it. And if you self-publish, you have to balance all those things. And sometimes with the pains of say birthing this thing, creating this thing. Sometimes you learn from that, and that can be a painful lesson, but sometimes it's a lesson that can be learned. And it's also a lesson that you can teach other people by, say, writing a tutorial for Sketch Magazine about how not to promote your book. What I did to successfully promote my book. But
Right.
you know, but I think that personal fulfillment is a big thing for some people, and it doesn't. Not that you have to create this and everyone has to just absolutely love it. Of course, I mean you like that, but getting it out there and having one more thing off your own personal bucket list.
Right.
For me, that's something that's I have a lot of projects going on.
Mm.
I have a lot of irons in the fire, and out of those things, that's really it's not about me. It's about comics, really. And I think for some people that it is just about comics. It's about doing comics and creating comics and being part of something bigger than yourself. And that's what this industry is. I mean, there are so many people in it, yes, but you are part of it.
Right.
And even if you self-publish, you're part of it. Now, I have also seen those people who are self-publishing parts of it who dress up in suits and with ponytails, the flash, but they don't have the substance to back it up yet.
Right.
But sometimes that is a painful lesson maybe that they have to learn once they get home and realize they don't have anything in their wallet to justify doing another show anytime soon. But that is for me and for other people that I know and have talked with, getting your voice heard in a way,
Right.
and getting your stories out there.
You just touched on something I think it's really important. There's a reason that a lot of people call their comics their babies because it really is this kind of birthing process. You're giving birth to a creative idea. And I think you can usually tell that if someone is just thrown away an idea, it's like, oh, yeah, I did this book, and who cares, whatever. Those are generally the books that don't catch people, that people just sort of go, that's cute, but whatever. The ones that people just really pour their heart and soul into, and they pour their heart and soul into the process of it, the marketing and everything else of it, I think those are the books that really tend to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can usually tell someone's voice is in it. Like we mentioned, Jeff Smith, Terry Moore, both those people. I mean, that's pretty darn obvious that is their voice. That is them speaking through the page.
I think
to the reader.
Right. Well, I think both of those creators, and you get through Dave Sims as one of the oldest guys out
true.
there. They each had a vision, and probably Dave's vision varied more than anybody's out there. He just sort of went with whatever was going on that year for him. But they each had a vision of where they want to start and where they wanted those properties. Both of those properties, Strangers and Paradise and Bone, have ended.
Right.
So these creators knew what they wanted. They had a story to tell, and whether they sold one copy of the books or they were successful with it, they were going to produce those books. And that's what you really have to do, is set yourself up like, okay, I can allot this much time. I can create the stories. I can get them done. I can learn how to letter or bring in a friend. I can get it packaged. I don't care if I sell it only to Aunt Jane and Uncle Jack and Mom and Dad a copy, or if I can get out and do shows and get online and build a really cool website around it and blog and post and create a podcast and really build a readership for it, and sell thousands. I want to tell this story. I'm sort of getting that mode myself with Race Danger. There's a set story I want to tell. I've lucked out and found a wonderful artist in Yuko Smith, and so I've got those feelings myself right now. It's okay, I know where I want to take it. I know where it's going to run. The cool thing is a lot of times these things sort of take over themselves, and that's the fun part of self-publishing. And you asked earlier about that. The fun part is, yeah, you know what? This was going to be a 4-issue story, but man, this one thing we started talking about, the characters just started writing themselves. We're going to beef this up to 6 issues, because it just took this whole turn. And a lot of, I always say, a lot of times on Blood and Roses, characters wrote themselves. They had their own personalities. I just threw the story arc out there and then wrote down what these two characters would do with it, that's fun. That is so fun. You don't have an editor or a publisher over you saying produce, 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 and no, that doesn't work. Even though it's the way that character would be, it doesn't work. So there's a lot of benefits to it.
I think another one of the benefits is time.
Yes.
You have the time to do it right.
Hmm.
I mean, even people who are new to the business know in their head whether or not it looks quote unquote right.
Most.
So most of them do. Most of
Right.
them do. Um,
I
some people have this you know, that old quote, the world is made for people without self awareness.
yeah.
Some people have that self awareness
Yeah.
problem, but, most people who are really serious about comics and serious about their work can tell it's not right. So,
Oh yeah.
one of the good aspects of self publishing is you can take the time and do it right, whether it takes a couple of months, whether it takes years.
Bill was talking about the conventions and stuff. You got to produce though. You can't do,
Oh, yeah, well,
you can't
yeah.
do,
You can't do one and then
one,
not do it for 30 years.
and
Yeah,
then the next convention a year later still have that
right.
one. That's one thing that Darren and Jackie and Krista does with Ringtail is they try to produce a new issue.
Right, there's
They have
always a new one.
something new to
Every season.
sell. You have something to sell to your past customers at a show,
Right.
and something new to introduce somebody else.
But
But
I'm thinking that first time,
hmm
really, to do it right. Now, yeah, once you've done it and it hits, then yeah, you definitely have to get on your horse, and start running with the thing.
treat it like a real job.
Yeah,
You can enjoy it. It can be your hobby and everything. But when you're seriously sitting down, treat it like, okay, I need to produce this much in this certain
right.
amount of time.
Actually, that'd probably be a good thing for a future show is
Hmm.
to, kind of discuss how to treat it like a real job. But we won't get off on that
Scheduling and
today.
everything. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
scheduling your time, budgeting your time around, your life,
Hmm.
what your workspace should look like, and all that other stuff. Because I think all that's really important. But I don't want to venture too far away from our original topic. Um, I also think it's very important when you get out into shows
Hmm.
that you have to go with. I don't want to. I don't think this quote is perfect, but it's close. You have to go out with some fear and arrogance. You have to go out there and not be overbearing, but
Right.
definitely think your book is worth looking at.
Oh, yes.
And it's really something that guy walking by with the swag bag that the show promoters gave him um, really needs to stop and look at your book.
That's one of the hardest things you can do. And there again, this whole nother podcast is
Yeah,
getting in
that's a
the
whole nother
shows,
podcast, but
getting the shows. But no, you've got to believe that somebody else wants to read the story as bad as you want to tell it. And you can't just sit there all quiet. You've got, like I said, you got to be the barker. Sometimes you can't, like you said, you can't be overbearing.
right,
You can't. You can be, but a lot of times it's a turnoff.
right.
It's sort of funny because Darren and Chuck was telling me about Charlotte this year and their neighbor
Oh
who
yeah,
had
that guy.
Haven, and
Yeah.
he had like 10,000
Oh Lord.
discs made, and he sold like 3. And he
Yeah.
went from being real quiet and didn't even look people in the eye to then he'd tell kids to go get $20 from their moms to buy his disc or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, no. The sad thing was he was coming to us.
Hmm.
We were one of the few tables there who weren't selling a thing. We weren't promoting anything. We were doing our interviews and writing our stories and doing that, doing what we do at shows.
Right.
Well, this guy was coming to us asking advice on what to do to sell his stuff because he had that huge, big, flashy setup, you know, um, and I think he just really misjudged the audience because the game he was hawking, there is no there's not as much gameplay to it as there is kind of just going through things.
Right.
There's no conflict in the
Hmm.
game. You're essentially searching around and reading things and things like that. And I think he really just misjudged the idea. I mean, he had the prerequisite busty female character posters and big standees and all that stuff. But yeah, I don't think marketing was this young man's first
Right.
job, because I think he just really misjudged.
But that's a good point to bring up, though. As a self-publisher, you got to gauge where you're going to put this book.
Yeah, you got to know
And
your audience. You got to know
yes,
the room. You
talk
know,
to the show promoters.
right?
Look, and they're not going to tell you right offhand true attendance, but they'll give you some type of number. Understand, you're going to get a very, very small percentage of that attendance by your table, and you're going to get a very, very smaller percentage to actually stop. Because a lot of
Right.
time people will walk down the center of the aisles, not look you in the face, and just either head where they're going or glance around. So, and here again, another podcast, we need to talk about setting up booths, but you need to
Right.
have your product as a self-publisher up where they can walk by it and they see an interesting image. Whether it's a standee or a big blow up of your cover or the backdrop, something to stop them and go, oh, what's this? Then it's your hook to go, let me show it to you.
Right.
A lot of times if you can give them freebie stuff, but it's self-publishing. It's very gratifying in producing the book. It's very hard to be a publisher and a promoter also. I think a lot of this is going to change digitally too, online and using the medias to promote your book. So
I think even then that becomes a double-edged sword, because you have to almost be a little careful
mhm,
about how you're promoting and where.
mhm,
Because I think that, like, say for instance, if you have a Facebook page,
mhm,
now if you were signed in as yourself, and sometimes you're doing promotional things,
mhm.
and sometimes you're just being kind of, yourself.
Right.
You have to remember that people are looking at that name
Mhm.
and they're saying, "Oh, okay, well, this person over here who a minute ago was promoting this book I thought might be interesting, just said something over here that I don't necessarily agree with. So I'm not going to buy his book now."
Right. Well, you and I have had conversations about what
Yeah,
you post, and you're
right, right.
absolutely right. And here's my big tip of the podcast. Bill and I sort of was in a while in a competition, see how many friends we could each get on Facebook. Remember that, Bill?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you were kicking my butt for a long time. Um, but
People like him.
yeah, I know. I don't know why they like the big guy.
They really, really like him.
But way I started visualizing this is that when you get so many friends, and your friends are a mix of people you don't have a clue who they are. You
Hmm.
popped up on an okay list, and they okay you. People business wise, people you went to school with, and then really your friends and families. So you have to be careful what you post. You can't say, got up and just felt like crap today, and I'm not going to do anything. Sit here. And then next thing it says, hey, by the way, buy my book.
Yeah,
You know, what I try to do is mix a little personal stuff, just like I posted on mine about the vacation. It was
right,
sort of humorous because we sank a boat, you know, and that's sort of funny. And you give them enough of that who I am. So when I post, by the way, we just posted Sketch Magazine Podcast 3 is now available. They'll say, okay, Bob's plugging his day job. They're cool with that. And
right.
either they're interested in listening to us, or when I get Clay's Way going, I'll be dropping posts about that to go check out and see what I'm doing. Or, they just want to, it could be family who just wants to hear, what the kids are doing. I,
Right.
I don't go real deep and personal on stuff, on this kind of stuff. But you got to open up enough to make them, I call it cheers, the cheers effect.
Hmm.
Like if we're all sitting around talking and having a beer.
Norm.
But yeah, it's sort of the cheers, and we get to slide a little bit of business stuff in with it.
Right.
So
And I think a lot of that may work for you because a lot of people know you, or they've heard you enough on podcasts or whatever, that they kind of get a sense of you. Now, someone fresh off the farm, I I'm kind of torn, but I don't think it's necessarily the worst idea if they get a separate Twitter or Facebook or whatever for their for the book that they're trying to promote.
when I have both.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They
Yeah.
could have both.
Well, just like with Clay's Way, here again, I'll do
Yeah.
a lot of things, and then on here I'll report how it's doing.
Right.
We created a Clay's Way Facebook page, and I haven't really posted a lot other than the initial setup.
Hmm.
But I'll be posting there and here, and I'm interested in see how it grows. Does it build its own audience? Because it'll be heavily promoted on the site, and as I go do other people's podcasts and blogs and stuff to promote that site, where's it going to go as far as friends and who joins it and everything? So it's an interesting experiment. Now on Clay's Way, I'm not going to post personal stuff though.
Well, yeah.
It'll be stuff about the site, and even though that site is about the kids and the family, there'll be some information there, but not like, hey, we just took a vacation. Here's a photo of Luke catching his first fish. Not that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Get back to self-publishing. You've got to use all these things. They don't cost you. Facebook don't cost you. Twitter don't cost you. They take very little time unless you get hooked up in some games, Bill.
I warned you about that.
I shut my Farmville down months ago now. Everything's dead and dried up. And they're free. And if you only have 10 or 20 people on your list, that's 10 or 20 people who get your post. It's not costing you but a few minutes of time and using it. So I don't use MySpace too much. It's part of my broadcast. I use a software called hellotext.com. It's HELLOTXT.com. And you can make one post and it goes out to all your social media outlets once you set them up. So I post through that to my MySpace, but I don't get on the MySpace that much.
I think it's died out mostly.
Somebody told me it's going more towards the music, and that's why Dark Horse jumped off of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Dark Horse's primary reason. They were saying, they've gone almost totally back towards promoting music, so Dark Horse decided to take their Dark Horse Presents, just bring it back in-house.
Right.
And start running it that way again.
Right.
Which is probably better ultimately for them anyway, because MySpace has definitely gone back to kind of the niche market it was when it began.
Right. Right now, Facebook seems to be the leader.
Facebook is the thing now. We all use, or a lot of us use LinkedIn as more of a business thing, and I think from a business aspect, that's kind of smart.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm ready to start being not just me, but actually being a business or a studio.
Right.
I think it's important to, start looking at stuff like that.
LinkedIn, was the other one Plaxo, Bill?
Plaxo.
Yeah.
Plaxo Pulse.
Yeah. That's another business one, correct?
Mm-hmm. And it's got a little bit. It will mix posts and stuff, but both of them you can feed your blog into them. I think one of them you can feed your Twitter.
Right.
So it's more multifunctional than it used to be, and they're always changing stuff too. So.
Right. Awesome, guys. So how many people have we chased away with the self-published?
I think we brought them back in the end.
Good. It's well worth it. Put out your best work and just know that your next work is going to be your best work. Then your next work's going to be even better than that. And just by producing and buying Blue Line paper and making more art, you're going to get better. And if you enjoy it, if you enjoy writing or drawing, it's well worth it. I've never figured out. It's sort of funny. I talked to other creators. Why do we love comics so much? what is it about comics that we can never like get away from? I mean, I sold my store today. I turned around and shook the guy's hand and said, "I'll see you Wednesday to pick up my new stuff." You know, it would be so easy to break away, but it's something that it's just we love. I mean, Chuck Moore, look at Chuck, who started CR and everything because
Yeah.
of his love of comics. So, and that's publishers. One thing I want to talk about publishing, though, we talk about self-publishing. There's many aspects of self-publishing. There's the micro comics, mini comics, what are those called nowadays? Like the small little fold.
Oh, the itty bitty things.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think they're just called minis
minis.
now.
I know.
There used to be some cute little name for them, but it just leapt right out of my head.
Well, at one point they used to be small. They used to be the small press comics,
Right.
and even the smaller versions of those. Because I did Amalgam
Mhm.
like 20 years ago. That was mine, and at the time I think we called it small press. So that was a term that we sort of agreed upon, but everybody had their own take on what it should be. So,
Right.
but yeah,
So what I'm saying is the end product probably nowadays it's more open to anything. Before you had to produce a comic and it had to be 6 3/4 by 10 1/8. It needed to be 20 plus pages, and if it wasn't color, it wasn't great, but we were getting away with black and whites. Nowadays, different shapes, different sizes, different packagings. Um, however you can shape it to grab your audience. If your book is a all ages book, so you want to set it up and bound it like a children's book, where the staples are on like the top, what would be top, and it's folded and opens up like a children's book, whatever it takes. That's what you want to do to build your audience. And there's several different markets out there to do that. What's the Space is a great convention to do if you're self-publishing.
Definitely.
I didn't get to it this year. I did it last year, and I will definitely do it next year. I like
Mid Ohio Con isn't bad
right Mid Ohio.
for that too. Yeah.
So there's some free plugs, guys. Space is cool because it's just all self-publishers,
Right.
no dealers, and there's a lot of intertrading and swapping and building companionships and stuff. And Bill, you need to come up next year for that because you probably know a lot of the people at the show from
probably.
Yeah, from online and stuff. And I like to see the show bring in more outside audience. Bring in more new readers and work towards that. But it's a great atmosphere for creating. If you're a creator and you're in that show, it's wonderful. So they built a great show for this. They're called Small Press. I forget exactly what Space stands for, but it's a great show. Look it up. Mid Ohio Con's a really good show. We got one here in Cincinnati that I'm interested in seeing next month. I don't know how it's going to go, but it's Cincinnati Con. So I don't know if it's going to be a lot of self-publishers or dealers or what yet. So
it's Cincinnati Comic Expo.
Yes.
.com.
Okay.
Yeah, and Champion City Con is a new one day that is extremely creator friendly.
When is that?
Champion City will be September 11th this year.
Okay. I might buzz up for that. You guys are heading
Yeah,
up,
you
right?
should. Yeah, we're heading up. We're set up at that show. Actually, we'll be selling stuff at that show.
That's what I heard. I heard your wife's going to man a table.
Yes, she is. She's gonna sell some
Yes.
of my. She's gonna sell off some of my junk.
All right.
Get some of the stuff out of the house. But
But those
yeah,
little shows are great for publishers
yeah,
because they're cheap to get into. $25, $50, $60, $70 a table. So they're very affordable. They're not overwhelmed because there's Marvel, DC, and stuff like that. So being a self-publisher, you can go in, you can set up your wares, you get more one-on-one with the audience, and it's usually you get a much better experience from the get-go. And those are great shows to build up your confidence.
Yep.
To build up the way your delivery, you gotta have a delivery. Bill, a couple years ago we set up in Chicago.
Yes.
That was the worst show I ever did for myself. The reason was I had no new stuff. I was so rusty at delivering what our goods. And after that show, even though Blue Line did great, it always does great. I realized that if we're going to do the studio, we got to create new material. We got to work on our delivery and how to present it, and have something to give people walking by, have eye-catching displays. So that was sort of a wake-up call for me a couple years ago. So it's a lot to think about, but really start with some smaller shows and work your way up. I know every show is a little different, the way it's ran, uh, the audience that comes in. So prepare your books and your materials to reach that. But you got to build up your readership as a self-publisher. It's up to you because you're it. Hello.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I
You kind of
rambled.
said it all with that.
Okay. So we want to wrap?
Sounds good.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, we have an email. It is podcast@sketchmagazine.net. So please email any questions or subjects to that email. Last night I posted podcast 3, and on my Facebook I hyped it, and I had Michael emailed me, and he says, just listen to podcast 2 and 3. Thanks, lots of good advice. Thank you, Michael. I'm going to be adding a few more items to my portfolio and my packets. Thanks again. He had 2 questions. One was, always get Sketch Magazine through the comic shops. Do you have any official street dates? No, we don't. And yet, he wants to let us shop. No. Anybody who has a shop who carries Sketch, they need to contact Blue Line. Either email info@bluelinepro.com or call 859-282-0096 and make sure they're on a store list to receive it. He says, any thoughts of attending C2E2 next year, whether it be booth or walking? I plan on setting up at C2E2 next year. And from now on...
That was a great show.
Yeah, I know. We'll be there in some capacity. I know CR will be there. So, John, you'll probably be there.
Absolutely.
I'm probably going to have the studio. And now, when I set up the studio, we're going to include Sketch with it and the podcast information. So, yeah, we will be at C2E2 next year, definitely. I posted that on Facebook. You can come back. Sounds good. Are we soliciting through previews with Sketch? We're going to solicit 41 with the Alex Ross interview through previews and see what the orders come back as. The distributing has really changed up at Diamond. Well, magazines have never done well there. We've done better self-distributing through art stores, art distributors, and directly to comic shops. So we're going to give Alex Ross, who I think will be our premier cover. Yes, I loved Adam Hughes and everybody else I've ever done, but I think this one should draw some attention. We'll just see how well it sells, see if we continue after that issue. Next email or Facebook post is Steve Staglin. Bill, you remember Steve?
Oh, yeah.
I've
read him.
He posted, enjoying your podcast. Reminds me of sitting around at conventions with you and Bill back in the day. Keep it up. Steve Staglin did a book called Boondoggle.
Yeah.
I love that book.
Yeah,
I did too. That's what I wrote him.
Yeah, he worked in my studio. I'm thinking it has been 15 years ago.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, and he worked for me, helped run the studio stuff. He would draw these little characters. I really encouraged him to get a book done, and we published several books together. And since then, he's moved on. He's working in some papers, and he's doing a lot of editorial cartoons, and he's doing really well. But I enjoy seeing Steven. He comes back into town to see his family, and he usually stops in. So, Steven, I really appreciate it. And keep it up. Keep Boondoggle going. That was a cool book. We actually do have an email here. Mike, first off, I think your magazine is great and enjoyed your first podcast. Great. I hope you enjoyed the second one and third one, too. I paint my comics with watercolor, but I cannot seem to get the same look using Photoshop. Can you please tell me if there are good tutorials on doing watercolor paintings in Photoshop? I have a Wacom tablet and Photoshop CS3. I can't really tell you of any tutorials that I personally know at this time.
I'll have to do some research on that one because,
If you find
I can't think of anything watercolor based, but
it would be using that watercolor brush and everything that's on CS3. But if you find them, just go ahead and post them up on the
right.
sketch day.
No, I definitely will because that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, off the top of my head, the only thing I can tell him to do is mess with the transparency. But I'll definitely do a little research on that and see what I can find, and we'll get back to you next time.
Yep, that sounds good. And be checking over on comicrelated.com sketch because that's where they'll appear. But it sounds like the project we're working on is creating tutorials, video tutorials. That might be one we need to put on the list early on.
That might be the first one right there.
Yeah.
So we'll have to give him credit for giving us our first idea for the video tutorial.
That's about it. Get a hold of us again. It is podcast@sketchmagazine.net. Send us questions. We'll do our best to go over them and give you an answer, or hopefully, if we can't right then, we can follow up with it later. So I think that's a wrap, guys. It's been a good one.
Yeah.
It has definitely been a good one. But before we go, in terms of what you were just doing there, we should probably do our own shameless plugging of ourselves and tell everyone where they can find us on the web.
Go ahead, John.
Oh, me first. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's my idea, so I go first. Okay. Well, of course, you can always find me at sketchmagazine.net. You can most often find me at comicrelated.com. My email there being john@comicrelated.com. You can find me on Twitter. I think my name there is John W. Comics Guy. And Facebook, I don't remember. I think that's Big Talking Monkey at yahoo.com. But if you find the Twitter, you can probably find everything else. So that's pretty much it. You can also hear me, unless you're totally sick of my voice already, you can generally hear me every Wednesday on the Related Recap and every Friday on Zone 4, both on comicrelated.com. Next.
Bill.
Okay. You can usually find me on Comics Mentor. That's my site. And that will tell you pretty much everywhere that I am or if something's going on, including the podcast, anything that I find cool, art contests. That's my main place. And then, of course, the comic-related board. And also, we're going to be blogging on sketchmagazine.net, too. So, those three places really are key places to catch us or catch me.
And I'll be last. I'm over at bluelinepro.com. I'm at sketchmagazine.net. You can catch me on Facebook at R. Hickey. I think it's Facebook/R. Hickey. Or you can search Robert W. Hickey and it'll come up. On Twitter, you can catch me. It's Robert Hickey, all one word. There's links to these on sketchmagazine.net for all three of us. So you can go over there and join our Twitter accounts. Looks like we need to put the Facebooks on here. My email would be robert@sketchmagazine.net. And beginning next week, I will be launching claysway.com. So I'll update you more on that on the next podcast. So I appreciate you guys listening. Thank you.
And I think that's going to do it for us tonight. So for all three of us, we just want to say thanks. Thanks for listening. We hope you continue to enjoy it. And please continue to send us your questions and messages.
And requests for topics.
And topics.
Yes.
Things you want to know. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, we don't do this in a vacuum, folks. We are interested in finding out what you like, what you want to talk about, and just, generally if we start hitting on the same thing too much, let us know.
Right.
And we'll be glad to, like Bill says, we'll be glad to talk about anything you want to hear about related to the creation of comics. And that's it.
That's a wrap.